Welcome to One Work, Five Questions, episode 78. And thank you for joining us today, Dr. Holochek.
Thank you. You segue right in after we start the video so well these days. I'm here with my beard manager, but go ahead.
Today's topic is, are treaties between nations always binding? And it's Thomas Jefferson's opinion on the French treaties. And but first, you know what we have to do first? What do we do first?
What we do first is we advertise my new book that just came out. What is it? It's called Whisk of the Red Broom, Stalin in Ukraine, 1928-1933. Beautiful cover once again. I'm very proud of this book. It's all about what the Ukrainians call Holodomor, which was the famine of 1932, 1933, where up to some 4 million Ukrainians died because of Joseph V. Stalin. I'll leave it at that. I'll let you do
it sounds like
credential thing.
A great reference material for a world history class, or maybe even an AP world history class.
Well,
or European
part of it. But most Americans don't even know about that, strangely enough. They know very little about Ukrainian history. Many Americans didn't even know where to find Ukraine on the map till the war happened. Many Americans didn't even know Ukraine was a country till the war happened. Anyways, but you want to do this credential thing? Is that what
credentials? Yes, I want to do credentials. Dr. Holochek is a professor of philosophy and the owner of Beard Manager and History, who taught at institutions such as University.
I haven't monetized on my Beard Manager yet. I'm good at coming up with things, but marketing, no, I'm not good at that.
They're 3 for $1.
That's probably.
He's taught at institutions such as University of Pittsburgh, University of Michigan, Rutgers.
Tea, not beer.
Camden and Ohio University, and he has 27 published books on Thomas Jefferson. But now you just can you hold your new book up again? But he has a book on Ukraine as well, right? So he does write on other things, one other thing other than Thomas Jefferson, and over 200 essays. Let me know when you get close to 300.
225 or more, probably.
Wow.
On Jefferson.
So the aim, I just want to remind people before we get started, the aim of this program is to look at one particular writing of Thomas Jefferson and either examine it thoroughly to see what other scholars have not seen, or we critically analyze some portion of the letter as a springboard for further discussion. And so I'm looking forward to today's episode because several weeks ago, when we were talking about the Kentucky resolutions, we referred to Thomas Jefferson's paper on the French treaties, submitted to then President George Washington, for whom Thomas Jefferson was Secretary of State. Dr. Holochek expressed some puzzlement, bafflement, and even profound bumfuzzlement.
Profound bumfuzzlement. I love
Is there
that.
even such a word?
There is no such word, but why should it? You can be bumfuzzled. Bumfuzzle is a verb, and bumfuzzled is an adjective, but there's no noun. Let's have a campaign to make bumfuzzlement.
Anyone who uses bumfuzzlement in a game of Scrabble, take a picture and upload it in the comments, and you will be our next guest. You will be win a spot to be a guest on our show.
Have you ever played Scrabble? First off, someone has to make the word bumfuzzle, which I think is more than 7 letters, which would have to be bum and then fuzzle added on to it. And someone would have to make MENT to that to make the word. So I'm a Scrabble aficionado a bit, so I don't know. I play a lot of Scrabble. I like Scrabble. I like words. All right, let's get on with this show here. We got something really cool.
I know. Yeah, let me finish. Okay, so Dr. Holochek pledged to try to clean up this confusion in a subsequent show, and that is this show. The main question is this: is there a change of government? If there is a change of government in a country, is a treaty with that country still binding? And what did Thomas Jefferson say to answer that question? And so we're going to answer that question today. And I'm scrolling to get to question one. Scrolling.
You're going to scroll for a while.
Keep
This
that
is
paper scrolling.
they can make a
Yes.
song out of that.
I know, scrolling. Oh my
Maybe a
goodness.
television
Okay,
show.
I'm there. I'm there. Are you still with us?
Yeah, is the audience. We'll see.
Question number one. This is an extremely long piece. It's 14 pages and nearly 5,000 words. So we could not exhaustively analyze it. We shall do what we can. So to begin, Thomas Jefferson begins with Hamilton's argument for not respecting our treaties with France. What is Alexander Hamilton's argument?
Well, I'm going to read what Jefferson says Hamilton says. And there's no reason to think that Jefferson is not copying Hamilton verbatim here.
Okay.
And then I will summarize the argument, right, on a separate slide so we can see just what Hamilton. Okay. He says, France was a monarchy when we entered into treaties with it, but has now declared itself a republic. It is preparing a republican form of government. As it may issue, that's the British pronounced issue, in a republic or military despotism or in something else which may possibly, come on, that's redundant, render our alliance with it dangerous to ourselves. We have a right of election to renounce the treaty altogether or to declare it suspended till their government shall be settled in the form it is ultimately to take. And then we may judge whether we will call the treaties into operation again or declare them forever null. Having that right of election now, if we receive their minister without any qualifications, it'll amount to an act of election to continue the treatises. And if the change they are undergoing should issue in a form which should bring danger on us, we shall not then be free to renounce them. To elect to continue them is equivalent to the making of a new treaty at this time in the same form, that is to say, with a clause of guarantee. But to make a treaty with a clause of guarantee during a war is a departure from neutrality and would make us associates in the war. To renounce or suspend the treaties, therefore, is a necessary act of neutrality. Now, to get clear on precisely what Hamilton is saying, I'm going to bring this up, my depiction of Hamilton's argument. All right, so this is, in a nutshell, this little bit of logic chopping here. I say that facetiously. Premise one, France was a monarchy when we made our treaties. True.
Okay.
France now declares itself a republic, though the revolution is going on. Declaration notwithstanding, its future is unclear. We don't know if it'll be a republic. A conclusion from 1 and from 3, so it might eventuate in a government hostile to us.
Oh,
conclusion 5.
That's a good point.
Yes, conclusion 5. So we have the right of suspension or nullification of the treaties, right? So we have that mini argument. Then the argument continues. If we receive their ambassador, it will amount to an act of election to continue the treaties. So if the change they are undergoing should issue in a form which would bring danger on us, we shall not then be free to renounce them. To elect to continue them is equivalent to making a new treaty at this time in the same form, that is to say, with a clause of guarantee. To make a treaty with a clause of guarantee during war is a departure from neutrality. Departure from neutrality makes us associates in a war. Therefore, to renounce or suspend the treaties is a necessary act of neutrality, right? From 7 and 10. Basically, he's saying from premise 6, if we receive the French ambassador, that in effect is not an act of neutrality. It's an act of partisanship, and it is tacitly guaranteeing or assuming that we're going to continue the treaty.
Okay.
Right? And then once we do that, right, we break from neutrality, right? And that's not a good thing. So that's Hamilton's argument in a nutshell. We have 2 separate arguments. To conclusion, statement number 5, we have the right of suspension nullification of the treaties. That makes sense. And he goes on to say, This argument based on reception of their ambassador makes us non-neutral and violates our neutrality, which is not a good thing. So what we have to do is renounce or suspend the treaties. I'm going to leave that as that is, just gone over that. We'll come back to that as we need to.
He has some valid points, though, because if the type of government changes,
I'm not saying he doesn't. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Yeah, you're right. So we're going to look at, and so far, what I'm arguing, I wrote a separate paper on this for Abbeville. It really is. This piece of Jefferson shows Alexander and Hamilton, just like Ali and Joe Frazier. I mean, they are two super heavyweight intellects fighting it out. And as I've said, Jefferson is like Ali with the rope-a-dope and all the, because he's the philosopher. And Hamilton is the realist and the pragmatist, arguing just this is the way reality is. And I've argued this many times. Their arguments can never really find any sort of resolution because Jefferson's arguing philosophically and Hamilton's arguing, from reality, from the politics, from political. They're not meeting at the same playing field.
Right.
So you're right. We're going to revisit that. Hamilton does make some good points. Hamilton was no inferior intellect.
Right.
Think of him. I'm not very fond of him as a person, but he was a ponderous intellect.
Oh, are you ready for question number 2?
I am, my dear. I'm so excited. This is all logic, and I get to do logic. I feel like a kid in a candy shop. A kangaroo and what do they call those little things at birthday parties where the kids go in and they jump up and down?
Oh, a bounce house.
Bounce house? I feel like a kangaroo in a bounce house. How's that?
Boy.
For a metaphor.
We should have broke this up into 2 episodes. Okay, Thomas
we
Jefferson.
can interview the kangaroo in the second episode.
Thomas Jefferson accepts the ingenuity of the argument, but not its soundness. Why?
He says that. He says it's a very ingenious argument, but it's not a sound argument. Again, I'll read what Jefferson writes, and then I'll break down logically Jefferson's argument, and we'll later on analyze both. Jefferson writes, I consider the people who constitute a society or a nation as a source of all authority in that nation, as free to transact their common concerns by any agents they think proper, to change these agents individually or the organization of them in form or function whenever they please, that all the acts done by those agents under the authority of the nation, i.e. the people, are the acts of the nation, are obligatory on them and inure to their use and can in no wise be annulled or affected by any change in the form of government. Notice I don't have a fake background today. I actually have a background.
Yeah. Oh, you have Robux just like me.
Yeah. Anyways, no wise be annulled by any change in the form of government or any persons administrating it. Consequently, the treaties between the U.S. and France were not treaties between the U.S. and Louis Capet, but between the 2 nations of America and France, and their nations remaining in existence, though both of them have since changed their forms of government. The treaties are not annulled by these changes. Now we'll go back to share screen again. I bring up, it's taking a while to come up. All right, let's make this larger. All right. That's Hamilton. Let's go to Jefferson. Jefferson says the authority of a nation is the people. The nation, in other words, the nation is the people. The people transact their concerns through chosen agents, so the people can change or rearrange their agents as they deem fit. In other words, those who are governing for them. That follows from 1 and 2. So the acts of the agents, i.e. the government, are the acts of the people. Follows from 1 and 2 again. If there's a change in the government, in other words, we change the agents or the representatives, or politicians, the people have not changed. So the government has not changed if the people have not changed, but only the form of government has changed. So treaties between France and the U.S. were between the people of France and the U.S., not between Louis Capet and the U.S. Congress. So the axial claim here, obviously, is number one, the authority of the nation is the people. The nation is the people. And Jefferson is roughly arguing if you change the representatives or you change the governors of the people, whether it's a king or not, the people are still in charge and you haven't changed the nation. So even if there's a change of government, i.e. in a revolution, since the people are the same and the people are the government, the treaties are still binding, right?
Mm.
Now, that should seem a little, you're shaking your head. That seems a little strange, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I've only disagreed with him a couple of times, and this, I have to say, is one of them. I don't agree
Yeah,
with his logic.
There's something fishy about the argument.
Yeah.
And there's something plausible about what Hamilton said. So we're going to get into that, and let's hold that aside. So what I've done so far is just given Hamilton's argument in gist, given Jefferson's argument in gist, and we'll go on to see what each gets right, what each gets wrong, and see who wins the battle.
Yeah, I'm curious.
From your perch, it seems like you're leaning towards Hamilton right here.
I am I'm not even conflicted. Okay, so question number 3. Thomas Jefferson is arguing philosophically and Alexander Hamilton pragmatically. Who has the better argument? Now, this is your opinion, who has the better argument?
Well, right. As someone who's taught logic for decades, my opinion doesn't mean, I hate when people say it's your opinion, right? Because in logic, arguments have a certain weight, and that weight of an argument does not vary with someone's opinion, right? For example, if I say, there are 100 cookies in a bin, and there are, and 90 of those cookies are chocolate chip,
right?
If someone goes in and randomly takes a cookie, I'm justified in saying he very likely took a chocolate chip, not knowing what he took, right? That's a strong argument, right? And you could say, well, that's just your opinion. And I would say, no, it's not just my opinion. It's a sound argument. It's a reasonable argument. It's a strong cogent argument. It makes sense. So I mean, to say something's just someone's opinion, if we left everything to opinion, we'd all be wallowing in treadmill subjectivism and never getting anywhere. How do you like that? Treadmill subjectivism. Yeah, no, so you're right. I mean, TJ is arguing philosophically. It's like I said, they can't fight on the same plane because one is arguing from a philosophical point of view. What do I mean from a philosophical point of view? Let's go back to Jefferson's argument quickly. Let me share screen again. And okay, here's TJ's argument. And look at premise 1. Does that strike you as suspicious? It does me.
Yeah, well, that's in theory. It's supposed to be the people. Yeah, but that's not.
See, you hit it. You said in theory it's supposed to be. Is every nation ruled by the people?
No, not at all.
No, there are a lot of tyrannies. Russia is certainly not run by the people. People have no voice in it whatsoever. Nor is China and numerous other nations. So this is what I mean. He's arguing philosophically. The authority of a Jeffersonian Republican nation is the people, right? And Jefferson wants to say, well, all nations should be run by the people. So if there is a nation, in other words, he's arguing if there's a nation not run by the people, it's not really a nation.
Right.
And Hamilton would come by and say, well, you're wrong, Jefferson. There are nations that are not run by the people. They're legitimate nations. They're just not run by the people. They're not republics. So once we grant the premise that the authority of the nation of a nation, he means any nation, is the people, right? then his argument sort of goes through, right? Now notice conclusion 6, which is generated by 1 in 5. If we have the authority of the nation as the people, so if there's a change in the government, the people have not changed. Therefore, the government has not changed, but only the form of government has changed.
That's exactly what makes the treaty null and void, because the form of government has changed.
Well, he's saying the government has not changed because the people have not changed, but the form, right. But Jefferson's using form in a very superficial way. Is that the what we see of the government, the visage of something, in essence, the government not, and in effect, if you go from, say, a republic to a monocracy or an oligarchy or a tyranny, it's not just the form that has changed, the government has changed because the people are no longer running it.
Right.
So Jefferson, this conclusion number 6 is not warranted, it seems, right? And the argument doesn't go through because of that. It's not just the form of the government really has changes. Just like when an autocrat or dictator is overthrown and then there's a republic, you don't want to say the form of the government. No, the government has changed. You have a substantially different. So we're sort of quibbling over words here. And if we look at Hamilton's argument, from 1 to 5, I follow that. It makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. France was a monarchy. Now we have a revolution. We don't know what it's going to be. So we have the right to suspend or nullify our treaties with them. And that makes sense. Then he goes on to say, if we receive their ambassador, amount to election to continue the treaties. But why is it that if we receive the French ambassador, that is the same thing, that is tantamount to agreeing to continuity of our treaties? It's not. I'm just agreeing to speak with the ambassador. I'm not by agreeing to speak continuing old treaties.
Right.
So 6 does not, that comes out of the blue. And because we get 6, he says we have to renounce or suspend the treaties to remain neutral, right? So 6 is a very suspicious premise that brings in, right? And because of that, we conclude 7, that they'll bring danger on us and so forth. To elect to continue the treatise is making a new treatise at the same form, right? We're not continuing the treaty by seeing the new ambassador. So what I'm trying to show is that because of this premise 6 that Hamilton, premise 6 here, Hamilton's argument doesn't go through either. What I'm trying to show is both have flawed arguments, right? But what I hopefully have shown is both men are very much in tune with what's going on,
Yeah.
Jefferson has a clear understanding of Hamilton's stance in his argument. Hamilton probably has the same clear understanding of Jefferson. So both people have flawed arguments. I think your intuition is that Hamilton has won the day with this argument, at least from 1 to 5, right? And I agree with you.
Yeah. If I had to vote, he'd have my vote. Okay.
Yeah, I probably would too. I think that means, we have the right to suspend or nullify with a change of government. Jefferson's not right to say it's just a change in the form of government. If it becomes chaotic over there in a dictatorship, it's a change of government, not just a change of form. Right. So we need to be very, very cautious as Hamilton. Now, the things are complicated because we know that Hamilton was an Anglophile, right? He was affiliated with the British, and Jefferson was a Francophile. So much for that. I agree with you here. That's just like
wow.
Time in all these episodes we agree. Isn't that weird?
I know. I think I'm going to fall off my chair. Question number 4. Thomas Jefferson then goes on to analyze critically Alexander Hamilton's objections in his argument. What does he find objectionable with Alexander Hamilton's argument?
Well, his work on the opinions of the French treatise is very long, like I said, almost 5,000 words, very close to 5,000.
Yeah.
And he looks at the argument from Hamilton. We go back to screen share, go back to Hamilton's argument once again, and he makes much of one premise. I'm going to focus on once it comes up large again. All right. Conclusion 7, which we derive from 6. If the chains they are undergoing should issue in a form which should bring danger on us, we shall not then be free to renounce them. Right? Jefferson makes a lot of that. I'm going to close that off at this point because Hamilton makes a lot of that. They might, the revolution might eventuate in a government that is very hostile and dangerous to the interests of the United States or even,
Right.
Other nations of Europe, perhaps all of Europe. So, we need to be very cautious. And Jefferson spends a large amount of this showing that the argument from danger is overstated, that we need not worry about the argument from danger, And I'm not going to go through all of everything that Thomas Jefferson had to say on the thing, but I think he's probably right that we can't assure ourselves that there's no danger whatsoever. But he minifies the amount of danger by trying to argue that when all the different scenarios, looks at so many different scenarios, look, the likelihood of there being any danger from a change in the form of government is very, very small. And again, with you, I'm probably, lining myself up with Hamilton here. And for doing that, I'm not a Hamilton fan, but, you got to look at the logic and Hamilton's argument until he gets to premise 6. Makes a lot of sense. They just need
argument. Well, not to mention, how old was the guy at this time? Like what, 23 maybe?
Well, this was what Hamilton's younger, as you know, than Jefferson. This was what 93, 1793. Jefferson's
okay. So he was in his 30s. He was only in his 30s, I think.
Probably, I don't know what the difference was. It was 40s. Yeah. Jefferson is 50.
Okay.
And so Hamilton's early 40s, probably. I don't remember what the age difference
I think Alexander Hamilton was around 19 when the Constitution was written. I think. Or
I don't remember.
I'd have to refresh my old memory too. But he was very young.
He was in swaddling clothes when the Constitution was written.
So I think he's a genius.
Yeah, there's no question. He's, when you read the arguments between Hamilton and Jefferson, which come out in Jefferson's Annus, which is an account of Jefferson's time as Secretary of State and many of the disagreements he had with Hamilton. Problem with Hamilton, he was a brilliant man, but he's also very much a self-interested man. In a lot of the political quote unquote reforms for which he was arguing were also sorts of reforms in the manner that could pad his pocket as well if they would go through. And he was not afraid to monetize, so all things with a strong, central bank and strong centralized government and everything were all designed in some sense were moves designed to make people who had a little bit of money and were willing to invest it in property, things like that, and monetize on that. So he's very much interested in his own affairs and advancing in own affairs. Let's say, in contrast to Jefferson was not. Not that he was indifferent to his own affairs, but he did not look at political office as an opportunity to advance his personal state affairs. In fact, he found just the opposite. That as you increasingly practice political affairs, your own state of affairs will diminish.
Wow. Yes, that's what I like about him. One of the many things. Question number 5. It's our last question. Finally, Thomas. Oh, we only have 9 minutes left. Finally, Thomas Jefferson appeals to 4 exemplary political theorists of his day: Freudis, Puffendorf, Wolff, and Vattel.
Yeah, So, as a lawyer, one must have precedents, go
Right.
back to, okay, not only that, here's my argument trumps Hamilton's, and it really doesn't, but I'm also going to give you precedents in some of the greatest political theorists of the day.
Oh.
And this is where you find that Jefferson's argument is wrong-headed, because, Jefferson argues in premise one that the government is the people.
Mm-hmm.
And what Jefferson should have been arguing, the government in a Jeffersonian style republic is the people. Not all
Right.
governments are the people. There are corrupt governments. Maybe Jefferson wants to argue the only legitimate government is governed by the people, but there are other governments, other than the sort of government Jefferson thinks. Grotius says, hither must be referred the common question concerning personal and real treaties. I italicize this. If indeed it be with a free people, there can be no doubt that the engagement in its nature real, because the subject is a permanent thing. And even though the government of the state be changed, the kingdom and treaty remains, because the same body remains. So Grotius is arguing that if you change from, say, a republic or democracy to a kingship, right, the treaty still needs to be, right? But notice he qualifies all this by saying, if indeed it be with a free people. Not all governments are governments by a free people. So he's qualifying that, and Jefferson overpasses that. Jefferson somehow doesn't realize that. Pufendorf, and I like saying Pufendorf. It's a fun word to say. It is certain, and Pufendorf writes, it is certain that every alliance made with a republic, notice that every alliance with a republic is real and continues consequently to the term agreed on by the treaty, though the magistrates who concluded it be dead before, or that the form of government is changed. So we understand where he gets this notion of the form of government, right? But it's the form of government. But he says every alliance made with a republic. He's not saying every alliance made with any nation.
Right.
So Jefferson doesn't see the qualifying remark of Pufendorf. Wolfe writes, the alliance which is made with a free people or with a popular government, again, republics, is a real alliance. And as when the form of government changes, the people remains the same, right? And the alliance subsists, though the form of government changes. Again, we get the form of government, right? But he's qualifying it. He's only talking about alliances made by free people or by popular government, recognizing there are other forms of government, which Jefferson doesn't recognize. For him, they're all illegitimate. And Vattel says, the same question presents itself in real alliances and in general, every alliance is made with the state and not in particular with the king for the defense of his person, right? And he goes to say, and he's ruling out autocratic governments, kingships where kings are only looking at their own best interests. In other words, autocratic dictatorships. So again, he's qualifying it not as clearly as the others have qualified it. He's not talking about all, he's ruling out governments where kings are dictators. So again, he qualifies it. So what I have to say here is Jefferson, looking at these four political theories as precedents, as to justify his claim, it doesn't work because he's ignoring the qualifying remarks. They're all recognizing the legitimacy of other forms of governments other than republics or governments of free people. Right. And Jefferson doesn't. Jefferson just is, in fact, with his premises saying any government that is not a Jeffersonian government, in other words, a government of free people and by those free people, is illegitimate. It's not a real government. Well, so the treaties are not binding in those. So all treaties are really binding in all governments because Jefferson thinks all governments are governments really by the people.
Is this a little short-sighted of Thomas Jefferson?
Well, not quite doing his homework. I mean, Jefferson, again, he's a theorist, and he's so wedded, remember my book, The Disease of Liberty. Jefferson is so wedded to liberty being a thing, being important, being a part of human nature, that it needs to be actualized in right government, he's going far beyond these other thinkers and just saying, look, anything other than a government by the people is not a government.
Right.
Say what you want, So all treaties between governments are binding no matter what happens, right? Jefferson doesn't qualify it by saying so long as he just says all governments are governments by the people. One might want to say, Jefferson, you're really not, working in full reality here. You're in cloud cuckoo land.
Right.
This is ignis fatuus, Thomas. I don't know what that means. I just like saying that. I like saying Pufendorf and bumfuzzlement in ignis fatuus.
I think you should. I think your next book that you should publish should be oh gosh, what's the word? It's something that's for fun and kind of not making fun of anything, but gosh, my brain just went blank. I think you should do a holocheck dictionary of all of your words.
with my particular definitions.
Yes, I think you should something, and then it could, for Scrabble, we could promote it to Scrabble players, so then they could say, it is in the dictionary. See, I have it right here. The holotext.
I have a beef with the Scrabble people. The letter V has 4 points, right? With other letters that have 4 points. But V is such a hard letter to use when you're playing Scrabble. It needs to be 6 points.
Oh, write that to them and tell them.
Well, the language changes over time. Words change, and T is the most common. E and T are the most common letters. E is the most common vowel, and T is the most common consonant. And so, Scrabble needs to change with the times. I'm not happy. I hate the letter V. Just my political comment. But anyways, wasn't this a lot of fun? I mean, I love doing this.
I have to tell you, it was more fun than I expected. I was a little overwhelmed when I saw the writing, and
it's a long piece. But when you break it, this is where logic comes in handy. Where Jefferson scholars don't write logically anyway. They deconstruct. They say you can't take it literally. I take it literally and I break it down, right. And I try to show that if you take them literally, you can ferret out their argument. The argument makes sense. Mm-hmm. And here we have an indication, a case for Jefferson, not always as clear as he could be, and he doesn't win the day. I think Hamilton, as you mentioned, had the better argument. Now, what are we going to do next time? I haven't a clue.
What are we doing next time?
We're going to do something with the real Thomas Jefferson, and I probably, if you have something you want to do, we can bring that, or I can consider bringing in one of my Thomas Jefferson friends on board, even though they're very, very few, since most of the people in the Jefferson community love me. They embrace me with open arms, right? Especially at Monticello and Poplar Forest. Love me there.
Oh.
You gotta play the game. The game is woke, and you've got to play the woke game if you wanna make money, if you want to monetize. So I don't have anything, but I'm going to let you think about if there's something you'd like to do.
Okay.
And it'll be Teacher Donna's choice for the real.
Thomas Jefferson. Is it real? Really?
Is it real?
Thomas Jefferson? The real Thomas Jefferson? Okay, I'll think about it. I did come across some things.
Just like my real background. All right,
and my real background.
You're real. Let's TTFN. This Catwoman on Batman. You say ta-ta for now. Batman.
Ta-ta for now, and give us a like and a share and comment. And we'll see.
And suggestions for future shows.
Yes. Oh, how can we get your book? Tell us how we can get your new book.
Well, I only have 2 left, and I'm afraid to say they're going to be expensive. They're like $70 a piece, but I'd do an autographed copy for $50